Welcome to this week's Double Bass with the Bass Pixie. This week we're going to take a look at the song Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed, which was a request from one of my patrons, Donna Crane. So before we start the tutorial, I want to take a look at some of the intricacies of this song because it's not quite as simple as it sounds. The first thing to know is that the upright bass player on this recording did a lot of improvisation, and each verse has its own flavour, each verse is different, it gets a little bit more complex throughout. There's not really much point learning it note for note. You can, I'm sure there's sheet music out there where somebody has actually completely notated that solo, and don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing to do, to go out and note for note learn somebody else's solo, because you can learn a lot from it. You can learn how to improvise, you can learn ideas, you can take things from it. But what I would recommend is, if you really want to do that, once you know the basics of the song, go and listen to it, see what he's playing around with. I will teach you a couple of his lines and a couple of ideas on how to improvise on this piece, but we're not going to do it note for note. The second thing you need to know is that there are actually two basses on this song. We're going to learn the upright bass line. If you are lucky enough to be playing with a second bassist, there is a bass guitar line which is higher and creates a really nice harmony with the upright bass, which can also be played by a guitarist, so either works fine. You can actually play both on a double bass, but that gets quite advanced, so maybe sometime in the future I might cover that if there's interest, so do comment below if that's something you'd be interested in learning. So the song opens with your basic bass line. Now this bass line is based around the chords C and F, and it runs through pretty much the whole piece with a couple of exceptions. So this bass line starts on the C, but the C is played on the E string. So it's somewhere down here, around where your neck meets your bass-ish. It's slightly different on certain basses, but what you need to do is you need to use your ears and find that note. That's C there, okay? So that's C, you play it once, and then it's repeated as a short one, but as that short one is being played, you're sliding your hand down to the F, okay? Now I would recommend, because it's so high on the neck and because it's such a long slide, instead of holding your bass the normal way with your thumb behind the neck, bring your thumb round to the front, because the slide is much easier. So the slide is really quite tough. It's tough on your fingers, it's on your bottom string, so you're really going to have to get in there and put a lot of muscle into it. It might take a little bit of training, but don't give up. So it's a C followed by a C and a slide, followed by an F, and an F and a slide. C, C slide, F, F slide. Okay? And that's your basic bass line. So you repeat that 4 times for the intro. So then it goes into a verse. Now the bass line differs slightly here. So we've got 4 bars of the C and F chord pattern, but we don't have the slide. So how I'm going to show you this is we're going to use it on the normal, your standard positions. So all fingers down, C there, up to the F. Okay. And it repeats that twice. So it's C, C, F, F, C, C, F. And then after that, on every single verse, so you've got 4 bars of the C to the F to the C to the F. Then you have 4 notes. And this bass bit does not differ throughout the song. When this part comes, it always goes C for 2 beats, D for 2 beats, F for 2 beats, D for 2 beats. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, like that. So if you put the verse together, you've got C, 2, 3, C, F, 2, 3, F, C, 2, 3, C, F, 2, 3, F, C, 2, D, 2, F, 2, D, 2. F2, D2. R2, D2, bravo. So next up is the chorus. So again, the chorus is made up of the C and the F chord, and it's 4 bars long. Now most of the time when the chorus comes, it comes with 4 bars of the chorus and then 4 bars with no vocals that connects it to the next section. And on this particular one, you're back to your basic, so you've just got your that 4 times. So now we've got a verse. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you the pattern he plays on this verse and explain to you why it works. So here he's starting to use his improvisation and he's starting to play around with the chord pattern. So let's learn exactly what he does here. So he opens the verse with a C, G, E, F, okay? So the notes actually come on what we call the and of the beat, which if you're counting in quavers, which is half of a beat, you're coming in on the second quaver on the beat. So it actually goes, if we count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you can hear where these beats are coming in. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Okay? So that's the pattern, the rhythmic pattern. And the notes you're looking at are C, G, E, F. Okay? So C here, and I'm using 2 fingers down rather than 3 fingers. You can use that if you really want to. Depends on the way you want to position your hand. I find it comfortable here to use my 1 and 2 on my C, open G, E, 1 finger down, F, 2 fingers down, like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And then he follows it with a B, okay? And they just come on the 3, 4 of the next bar. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, okay? And then the second bar of this verse, he repeats the same rhythmic pattern and he just changes the notes. So I'll play it to you and then I'll tell you what notes it is. So it's okay? So you've got C, G, F sharp, or fingers down, which is why I chose the position here. Because if we're up here, we've got to change hand position to get to that F sharp. Whereas if you play the whole thing under this hand position, when you come to this part, you don't have to change hand position, okay? So you've got the C, G, F sharp, F, and then we follow it with the A, B again. And then after that pattern, you return to that bit that I explained is the same every time, where he plays C, D, F, D. Okay? So to play that verse all the way through, it goes. And that's that. So we're going to look at why this works, what he's done, why he's chosen the notes he's chosen. So we're in the key of C and we're going from the chord C to the chord F, okay? So moving between chords, there's lots of different ways you can move from one to the other. Now he's stuck with the root note on the C because it's a nice strong note and there's very few instruments in this track, so sticking to the root note on the chord changes is quite an important thing to do. So my advice would be to stick to the C on beat 1 and the F on beat 4, which is what he's done in his improvisation here. So, but what he's done, he's chosen to get to the F in 2 different ways, okay? So we're moving from the C, and what he's chosen is the 2 notes either side of the F to approach that F, okay? So if you're looking at the scale of C major, the first 5 notes are C, D, E, F, G. And what he's done is he's chosen to use the C, followed by the G, which is the one above the F, followed by the E, which is one below the F, to then reach the F, okay? Like this, either side. And then to get back to that C, he climbed up from 2 notes beneath. So he's used 2 beats before, and he's used the 2 notes beneath, A, B, C, okay? So if you're doing the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So A, B, C are just before the C, and he's used A, B, C to come to that C. The second time he approaches it, he's taken a slightly different method. So he's still got the C, and he's still kept the same rhythm, but he's decided to start above the F and come down. But instead of coming down, which sounds very nice, you know, you can use an A, G, F, which are the 2 notes before the F. What he's done is used he's used the semitones, which gets a more interesting sound because the F sharp that he chooses to use is not actually in the key of C, but it creates interest and it works because it's on a non-important beat. So he's come down, that F sharp, it's not in the scale, but it sounds interesting because it means the music wants to move back to the F and it kind of pulls you back to the F in an interesting way. So now we have another chorus. And again, he improvises, but he just changes it up just a little bit. So what he does is he sticks with the same notes that we used in the second bit of the last verse. So the C, G, F sharp, F. But he changes the rhythm around. So let's look at how it sounds before we break it down. So like I said, we know musically why this works. We've got the same notes, but we're just going to slow down that rhythm and see what he's done. And that's where he's added a little bit more interest by changing the rhythm, but not the notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay? So watch out for the second time it comes around. That's a tricky little one. The 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Because you're hitting the F, which is the first note of the next bar, but you're hitting it on the last quaver of the bar before. So it comes in almost like a push. You call it a push. It's where you bring a note in just before it feels like it should be played. It pushes it, if you know what I mean. So you'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So the next section goes back to his basic, because when you're improvising, you don't want to go too fancy all of the time because it gets boring and it doesn't sound interesting. So what you want to do for your improvisations to sound interesting is you want to come back. You want to come back and make it basic. Come back and give the listeners a break. And then when you do come back in with the improvisation, they go, oh, that's really interesting. So what he's done here, he comes back to his slide. And also the reason for this is because over the top of this bass line is he's got which is the new part of the song. So there's an interesting new part of the song. So the bass player has cleverly thought, I'm just going to keep this basic. I'm going to keep this simple because they've already got something new to listen to. So here he's just 6 times over your slides. So at the very end of this section of the doo-doos, he just adds a tiny little bit to bring you back into the next section. It's sort of like saying, yep, here we are, we're changing, we're moving on somewhere else. And even though the chords aren't going anywhere, it still makes the listener go, oh, we're now moving on, let's do this. So he finishes his last slide, and then, just to bring it into the next section, you have A, B, B, C on the quavers. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay? So we're going to take a look at one more verse at what the bass player does. Because this one is slightly different and again kind of interesting. So for the very first part he uses the C, G, F sharp, F. Okay, so we've done that bit before, we know how that goes. And then what he does is he finishes it off with a C, A and an F. Okay, so it sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, and that's followed by a bit we've done before, which is the C, G, F sharp, F, A, B, B, C. Let's just take a look at the new bit that we brought in, which was the C, A, F. Okay, and why that works musically, so why he's chosen to do this. So it comes in the second bar, and we know that that second bar is the chord of F. Okay. So your basic F triad is made up of F, A and C. So that's your basic chord when you're in the key of F or when you're playing a chord of F, F, A, C. Okay? So what he's done is he's broken that chord up into 3 notes and he's played it in reverse to bring you just down to the F before moving back down to the C. So it's just basically breaking the chord up so you can hear each note of that chord and then moving back to the C. So that's most of the tools you need to play along with this song. So if you just remember that the pattern of the song is C to F most of the way, and if you get it in the right places, you can play around with that. So just like he does. You just play around with the rhythms. There's lots of ways to play around with it, as you can see. Just make sure the bits that you get in the right place is the, and then you can just play around. Play this one, you can go down to the slides. Bring them in wherever you want, really. I mean, there's places where he uses them in the song, but it's up to you. That's the whole beauty of improvising. That's the whole beauty of just being able to play around with whatever you feel. And this is a great song to start learning that skill on. But if you get lost, if you feel at any point you're going, oh my God, I'm so out of my comfort zone, come back to here. Just give yourself room to think. And you can just improvise simply as something's going to a G, or a D, or an E here. So there's really simple ways to improvise around the song. If you're one of my patrons, you can go to the download section of the Patreon page, and I have broken the song down into its full structure, so you can have that in front of you and play along to the song and be kind of confident you know where you are and where the little different sections coming, and that's just in the downloads on my Patreon page. If you're not a patron, feel free to go and check it out. It's www.patreon.com/theBassPixie. It starts at just £3 a month, and you get access to all the downloads. The more you pay, the more things you get. There's behind the scenes, there's little things about what I'm doing. You get to know when videos are coming. There's, at a high level, there's early access to the videos, so you can be the first one, and there's ad-free content as well. So if you are interested, please do check it out, sign up. The more of you that sign up, the more videos I can bring out, because it's still only a part-time thing, but I'm loving the guys who are interacting and being part of the community every day. We have a little Facebook page and we have some great chats. Everybody's there to help each other, to support each other. People are posting videos of their practice, their progression, how they're doing, and I'm always kind of around to help out and give little tips here and there. So I hope you've liked the video. Please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe for more videos. There'll be lots more coming in the future, and keep rocking.